Imagine waking up in the morning to find your property submerged in flood waters. Well, keep that image in mind, as this is the reality of many Nigerians in parts of the country this season. Flood waters have wreaked havoc on many communities in Nigeria, leading to loss of property and even death. Well, Nigeria's capital city is not exempted. Recall the recent report of 4 children who died around Dogongua community in Abaji area council of the FCT, as well as the director in one of the country's ministries. Now, what are the gaps responsible for the current floods and how are they being tackled? This is our focus on the program. Welcome to Nigeria Today. I am Anne Jibuno. Now in the studio to discuss the flood warnings in the country is the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clement Nze. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice to be here again.
We also have an environmentalist, Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Rigasa. He's joining us also.
Thank you very much.
Now I'll start with you, Director General Clement Nze. You just had a press conference reeling out a series of warnings. Why these alarm bells? And are we out of the rainy season? Do we still have the rainy season?
Well, yes, the alarm was sent out today again because devastations continue to happen. Flood-related disasters keeps occurring within the country. So there's need to, once again, sound the alarm that, like we equally asked the question, that the country is not yet out of the rainy season. And they will know rains or rainfall is a major causative agent towards flooding. We are yet to get out of it.
Now, Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, reports have indicated that a majority of these floods we have seen and witnessed across the country as a result of human activities. How have these impacted, the way water flows in the country?
Yeah, by and large, to me, flood is caused by two agents. We have natural causes, and we also have the human factor. Natural causes, of course, human beings have limitations on the way they can manage them. But where human beings or human action can actually impact or mitigate the problem is, human-induced floods. And this is not limited to Nigeria. We've had this, for several years. Over 10 years, every year is always flooding year in, year out. So we need to actually wake up, strengthen our institutional framework, such as NISA, such as NIMET, such as NEMA. We also have emergency agencies at state levels. Also, they are to deal with a response in case of this human or natural catastrophe. But somehow we've not been able to get it right, because the linkages are not properly placed. Most institutions, communities and citizens, they are acting in silos, and that is the reason why when flood events or flash flood events happen, the fatalities and the damage both to properties and human beings, they are quite huge. So there is need for that synergy. Those gaps that exist, we need to bridge them.
All right. Now, Director General, we have heard reports of lands in flood-prone areas being sold to people. What's been done to put a stop to this? Your agent, is there any collaboration among agencies, relevant agencies, to address this challenge?
Well, the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency has been doing as much as it can with regards to advising states in the area of acquiring lands or building properties within the flood-prone areas. Now, what my agency is doing floodplain mapping, flood vulnerability mapping of various areas in Nigeria. This is not what you can see physically when you look at the place. Like even here in Abuja, you talk about what happened in Kogoma and the other settlements too, where people, estate developers built within the floodplains. You may not see it visually, but if experts come to do mapping, they can tell you the extent of inundation in times of a flooding. And you don't just do it arbitrarily. You take into account the rainfall pattern within that area. Talk about the streams or rivers that are contiguous to those locations we are developing. So our agency has been doing a lot of advocacy. Even when we do our flood prediction, the annual flood outlook, we also try to cascade it to various zones in the country, wherein we tell them these are the locations within your own zones or your own states that are prone to flooding. You may have structures on them already. Try to find a way to remove them before the flooding comes. So if you do proper, like when the one that happened in Kogoma, Gladimawa, I had a discussion with the director in charge of development control in Abuja to see, is there a way we can work together? I believe there is, like my colleague was saying a few minutes ago, the issue of linkages, that there's a gap. That we can work with you here in Abuja. We have the expertise within our mandate too, to work with you and then delineate within all these estates in Abuja, the locations that are prone to flooding.
All right.
Through production of a flood vulnerability map, that you know which structure that can be marked and to be removed.
Okay, now Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, he's brought up issues of data.
Yeah.
Do we have enough data on flood-prone areas and rising sea levels in the country right now? And are they being utilized?
We have,
data being utilized?
We have limitations on data. Sometimes you may have data, but they need to be appropriate, and you need to constantly upgrade them, refresh them in such a way that they can be usable. And that is the reason why organizations such as NIMET and NIHSA, they regularly release this data for the use of policymakers and those that are in charge of implementation of public policy. But I think while NIHSA is doing its own work and NIMET is doing its own work, the consumers of this data, or those people that are responsible for keeping records of this data, they are not up and doing. Because if there is a flood alert or flood warning, for example, that flood is coming, then the authorities that are saddled with the appropriate response or building resilience in communities, they need to be also up and doing. We cannot have a situation whereby you have maybe 10 government agencies that are involved in flood mitigation and only maybe 1 or 2 are actually active. No, all of them need to come together and be active. And if possible, maybe from time to time, they need to carry out what we call something like a drill, to test their response capacities in the event of flash floods in a sensitive area. That is how we can be able to move forward.
Okay, DJ Clement Nzi. Now, what should the people living in these flood-prone areas be doing right now?
Well, I think at this point in time, the best people can do is to move.
To where?
That's another question. But it's better for you to secure yourself than to say, I don't know where to go. In our culture as Africans, we are our brothers, our sisters, keepers. When we were in Kogi State last year, that's what we advocated. People, like even when NEMA takes statistics, they will tell you so number are with their relatives, so number are in the camp, and so on and so forth. So we advocate that people should move to higher grounds at a time. It doesn't take too much time. Maybe within 3 months or so, depending on the location, the flood will come and pass. So people should move. And then the state governments should make deliberate efforts. The federal government have been doing something under the Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation that came into existence in 2012, headed by Aliko Dangote. In some states, they built some structures. I know 2 structures in Lokoja, what they call it flood house or flood hostel. Within this period, people can go there and stay. So the state should help the federal government, or should complement the effort of the federal government to make sure that those places are actually habitable. So that during this short period of time, maybe 3 months or thereabout, people can stay there and they'll be taken care of by the state governments. The flood will come and pass. You can go back to wherever you are.
Now, Dr. Rigasa, what are the immediate and long-term impacts of this flood, very briefly?
In the short term, whenever a flood happens, you lose your property. And if you are wrongly placed, you can even lose your life, things like that. But in the long run, it distorts, the human habitation pattern. It disturbs the way people normally, their means of livelihood. If you're a farmer and your farm happens to be flooded, that's it. You have to move. Or maybe you lose the whole crop for that particular season. So these are what I see as the short and long-term consequences.
All right. Well, this is Nigeria today, and we're taking a look at flood warnings in the country. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll continue with our conversation, but let's listen to what Nigerians have to say on this matter.
I believe that the whole thing boils down to indiscipline. That's the way I look at it. Because government is not expected to do everything. If the individual who is taking his money, building a house that is not 1 million, 2 million, must you take risk? Why don't you do the proper thing? Even the authority, the FCDA, they cannot be everywhere. One just has to discipline himself. And if you are not having free money, you don't stake your money to go and build where you know that even if nobody arrests you, the flood is there to arrest you.
It's as if you were with us in my place this morning, because what we actually experienced, if there is any other word I can use apart from flood, because it was a serious issue, especially in my own local government, Kuje. Honestly, everything came to a standstill as a result of little or no drainage. So the water, you need to see our school children, 2 of them, it was divine intervention. The flood will have taken them away.
I stay at Cardinal Road. The flood was so much that we were floating on top of water. That was on Sunday, one fateful Sunday like this. The bridge fell, some cars, some houses and everything went down. So the flood is too much.
The flood situation in Galadima is it's not a hidden issue any longer, because they are taking lives. There is a pit, borrow pit, which at every single rainfall, that place will be flooded, even overflow the roads.
I stay at Federal Housing Authority, Lugbe. Like yesterday when there was rain, there was so much flood that even it moved some heavy rock, and a car or 2 was spoiled, and they were stuck in the heavy flood.
Welcome back. The program is Nigeria Today, and our focus is on flood warnings in Nigeria. And I have the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clement Nze, and Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Rigasa, an environmentalist, on the program. We've listened to Nigerians. Everybody seems to have one experience or the other, this issue. Our Director General, Clement Nze, let's talk about our response to floods, or post-response. We are quite, I think it has improved. How would you describe our post-response?
Well, I think, like I said earlier in the year, we came up with our prediction.
I just want to know, how would you rate it?
Generally,
not just your own.
Because I won't really say that the response has been quite encouraging. I won't say so. Much as flooding or issues about flood is what we cannot, avoid or cannot stop. It will always occur. But the issue, what I'm talking about is the resilience. What I'm talking about is mitigation, reducing the impact. So from our assessments across the country, vis-a-vis the quantum of energy we put in to sensitize the public through various media and physically visiting. I wouldn't say that the response has been quite impressive, unfortunately.
Now, Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, let's look at the pre-flood warnings, or response rather. How would you rate the response from the people and the agencies? Are we getting it right?
Yeah, there are two sides of it. One is called preparedness. That means you prepare yourself against such eventualities. And the other side is response. And both sides were poor. The reasons why the performance is poor is because of what I said, lack of linkages. Those authorities that are supposed to prepare the public and prepare, you know, the people or the city for flash flood eventualities, they are not working, you know, in synergy. We have to be able to bring government institutions, to bring communities, to bring citizens, because this thing happens at different level. Citizens have responsibilities for flood mitigation. They need to know that. They need to clear their own drains right in front of their house. And then communities equally have responsibilities to clear drains within their own community, because it's not every household that has the capacity to clean or clear their own water channels. And then when the community cannot actually do it, they move on to local government, then to state, then to federal government. But we have a situation where one institution or maybe one stakeholder feel that they can, you know, provide a solution for everybody. And at the end of the day, we have no solution for anybody.
Okay, now, Director General, urbanization is a good thing, but we have noticed that most of the time, most of these floods occur in shanty areas in urban cities. What are the gaps? What do you see as the gaps responsible for this?
Like somebody mentioned from Kuje. Somebody spoke from Kuje local government area council. No single drainage. The gap we notice is that in these, satellite areas or suburbs, as you may call it, there is no single planning. There is no planning, no urban planning to demarcate, to tell you, taking into account these issues about flood, put drainages on the roads, put drainages around the buildings to see how the water can be conveyed to natural channel that nature provided. So at times you see people build their houses. There's one I saw somewhere in Anambra, using block to block a natural drainage channel.
Ridiculous.
Ordinary block. So it just can be the flood stayed a few hours maybe, and then continues on its way as if nothing happened. So if there's proper planning, you'll be able to understand the direction of flow of runoff in the event of rainfall. You try not to do anything along that area, and then proper planning involving the relevant professionals will tell you this is the amount of rainfall in this area. This will be, you do proper calculation, design, to tell you this is the amount of the size of the drainage. Not a question of somebody, maybe a contractor, a builder will come and say, make it 2 feet wide and 1 foot deep, 1 foot deep, or something like that. It doesn't work. But maybe drive through the Nnamdi Expressway. The side drains or even the airport road, you could see there's a design. Apart from human beings blocking it with any refuse, the side drains are adequate enough to convey whatever is coming anyway. A few minutes after the rainfall, it has been dispersed. But in the rural areas, settlements and the suburbs, there's nothing like that. So that you may discover eventually in the suburbs, where you put your structure is where the flood has its own natural pathway. And then it goes there to clear whoever is blocking his own passage.
Yes, Dr. Yusuf, he has raised a very important issue. Planning seems to be the best remedy, for flooding. How can you add to what he said? How can we plan to ensure that the worst hit areas, Kogi and states in like Lagos and all that, don't fall into this the kind of incidents we saw in 2012?
Yeah, you assume the gap between the rich and the poor, maybe between highbrow, maybe low-income areas, is simply planning. If you live in a high-income, low-density area, the area is properly planned with water channels, so water don't usually stay. Whenever there is heavy downpour, the water just go away. But in a slum where everybody has to find a little space to build his own house or something like that, normally people disregard, provisions for drains until when the rain comes and they realize that they are at risk. Then they start running helter-skelter. So planning is key. Not only planning, you must enforce, what you have in your plan. We have building codes, and that is what you see in highbrow areas. People obey the building codes, or maybe somebody is enforcing them. But in slums, the building codes, people have totally ignored them. So in such kind of places, if you want to do improvement, maybe you have to embark on what is called urban renewal. But in totality, in most of the country, there's what I learned somewhere, it's called sustainable urban drainage system. These are drainage systems that mimic nature. That is what we need to have. Kaduna and Abuja are well-planned cities. But if you look at the plant lack a demarcated outline for, water flow in case of heavy downpour. So we need to go back to the basics, that when we are planning, we need to put in those plans, appropriate water channels and drainage system, such that when there is heavy downpour, water will find its way without actually interrupting the people's lifestyle and quality of life. This is a duty that government has to do, because people cannot do it.
Yeah, beyond what he has said, Director General, how are we learning from countries who have had issues like we have and have been able to come out of it?
Learning? How
can we learn from countries with a lot of flooding? And
in fact, I visited one ambassador. He told me that his own country, Bangladesh, they are about the best in the world when it comes to resilience, in ability to fall back, ability to recover. They were worst hit some years ago, according to the ambassador. Very few people died compared to another nation that is bigger than they are or have more resources. Now, we have been doing our best to see to what extent, as a nation, through various agencies, how we can learn from the best practice relevant to what we do as obtainable in other countries. Another ambassador told me, ambassador of South Korea, that they don't lose one single water that falls down. In other words, they know how to manage it. So in Nigeria, we are having some program based on our own mandate, the work we do, to see how we can adapt or adopt what we are learning from other places. Like Dr. Regasa mentioned, if we can work as a team, not in silos, it will be easy to fertilize ideas and then see how we can transform this to get a better result for our country.
Okay, so hopefully in a few years, what we are seeing, the floods we are seeing,
yes,
we will not see them anymore.
But remember that flood, you cannot eliminate it completely.
Okay, thank you very much, Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clement Nze, for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay, and I also must thank you, Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Regasa, an environmentalist.
Thank you for having
time
me.
To be here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is how far we can go on this edition of the program Nigeria Today. Thanks for staying with us, and do join us again tomorrow.